David Goss and Tommy Scoops on Soccerwise. It is time to talk about the New York Red Bulls. They are returning as Eastern Conference champions. They made their second ever appearance in MLS Cup. They are still yet to win a cup. Tom, it's a club you're closely familiar with, being a New Jersey native. I am a Long Island native. I skipped my junior prom to go watch Juan Pablo Angel play against Guillermo Barros Schelotto in what was at the time coined El Clasico or Super Clasico in New Jersey, because it was Boca versus River. And by skipped, it wasn't like people were clamoring for me to go. So let's just, I'm using the vocabulary I choose to use. Don't push me on it. Don't get Big J on that one. And it was a surprise run last year, but I think we talked about MLS Cup on this show. It was exciting. It was a big deal. And I think to me, it was sort of both a reemergence, but a reminder of like how important this region is to the sport in this country.
Yeah, it was really fun to see this team go on a run in the playoffs. Again, like a lot of it was on the road, so I'm still craving like a bouncing Red Bull Arena because, again, in those, like the Thierry Henry years, of course, but also the 2015 Shield team, the 2018 Shield team, like it's easy to joke about like from outside about, either empty seats or the atmosphere at Red Bull Arena just because of it's not one of the premier fan experiences at the moment, just by way of noise and home field advantage and everything. When this team is very good and the fans are behind them, it is one of those places. So we'll see if they can capture that back in 2025. The run in the playoffs, again, like it was on the road for all of it, so we wouldn't have seen it then. I think that this team has a lot of goodwill with the fans. They would have the most goodwill if they went and signed another designated player. I understand the fans' concerns. I still think that this roster is really good as it is, and I'm very excited to see this Red Bull team in 2025. I'm
not a Northeast native anymore. Have they moved the press box officially?
They did.
R.I.P. to the best press box in professional sports.
Don't cry because
it is something I'm sure every fan likes to hear about is, press complain about the free seat that they get. Well, not free, but the seat that they get and how good it was and how good it wasn't. But it will be mentioned, I guarantee you, a bunch of times as the season starts and people start coming back and having to sit there. It is, as you said, one of the jewels of venues in North America. And so hopefully it's bouncing once again. And I have to say here, it is the 10-year anniversary of New York Red Bulls 2, the greatest team ever created. And I was lucky enough to broadcast them in the early parts of my career. I've never had more fun than like watching these young players just run down the throats of full-fledged professionals who are like, yeah, they'll press us, but we'll figure it out. And it's like, you are not going to figure this out. And those were always a blast, and those are always a highlight of my career and a chance for me to get connected to the youth game and youth development, which is something I'm super passionate about. So I know Red Bulls fans are excited for this season. So let's get into our preview, and we're going to talk with who else but the Godfather himself, Mark Fishkin of Seeing Red. Let's continue on in our MLS season previews, and we've got a big one to talk about here. 2024 MLS Cup finalists, the New York Red Bulls, and we are joined for this one by the legend himself, Mark Fishkin, host of the Seeing Red podcast. Mark, did I hear it's the 600th episode of Seeing Red?
Yeah, we're just starting our 16th season. Wow. Covering the New York Red Bulls, and we just had episode 600. So you'll catch us up. You'll catch us in a few weeks, I'm sure.
Well, luckily, if we keep putting out 37 episodes a week, we've got a shot. Otherwise, right there. I don't know if we have the sustainability to get there. It's always been an honor to be on your show. I'm excited to have you here with us. For anyone listening via Soccerwise, Seeing Red, it's not just a great New York Red Bulls podcast. It's a great soccer podcast. That's how you get to 600 episodes. So if you love the game and you like what we do here, go listen. If you're listening on Seeing Red and you don't know us already, congrats for avoiding myself and Tom for all these years through New York Red Bulls 2 and Keene University and everything else that's gone on. And so come join us at Soccerwise. We go live twice a week on YouTube to talk MLS. We cover NWSL extensively if you're a Gotham fan or anyone else. And we're putting out, as we said, as many shows as we can per week. This is a big year, obviously, for New York Red Bulls. We're going to dig into a lot of it. We have some words of sage wisdom or philosophy from the great Matt Doyle. I've been calling them our Doyleisms. We will sit at the foot of the legend. We will go through all the transfers. We'll talk about what we expect this year. But this is a team, Mark, that has to start with last year. MLS Cup, it was unexpected. Being a 7 seed, it is historic for a team that has not been there very often. Just give us your thoughts now, over a month out, of what it was, what it meant, and sort of what the experience was.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the day of MLS Cup was absolutely phenomenal, right? It was a beautiful, sparkling, clear Southern California day. And Andres Reyes's medical condition notwithstanding, New York was right there with the MLS Cup champs in their house, hit the post late, had a penalty kick shout that continues to baffle me that was not called as Manuel got mugged in the box in injury time. But listen, for Red Bulls fans, the playoff run in 2024 was absolutely, I think, a shot in the arm to the entire organization. This team obviously missed Emil Forsberg for 3 months in the middle of the season when it happened to coincide with a run of not great results. And wouldn't you know it, when you bring back the $6 million man into your lineup who raises the level of everyone else, the team was able to return to their early season form where they were, at one point, they were at tops in the East. And so I know a lot of folks were like, wow, what could be the secret for how New York is doing it? Well, they're doing it because their best player came back to the lineup healthy and ready to go. Amazing. But obviously, the win at Columbus, I think, showed everyone, this could happen. Like, New York could actually go on a run. Obviously, winning at Citi Field was a absolute top result for this team in their history, not only on the field but off the field as well, because the city support got very quiet going down 2-0, and there were lots of Red Bulls fans in the house that day, and I thought that was great. The win in Orlando was fantastic and icing on the cake, and just the way that New York was able to win with suffocating defense, with big goals, and it almost got them. I mean, it got them as close as they've ever been. And Dave, you mentioned not frequent trips to MLS Cup. They're second in 29 years. So the fact that the front office basically paid for 2,500 Red Bull fans to attend the game in one way or another, I thought lifted. It was a moment where the Red Bulls front office got it, and huge credit to those guys who, I mean, it's a pretty big price tag that they paid to make sure that their longtime fans were able to take part and watch something that had happened just once before in 3 decades. So I think there's a ton of optimism, a ton of change for sure, but I know we'll get into it. I think it's a lot of change for the better.
And you felt it, I think. Like, obviously, I've been around since they were the Metro Stars, going to games, and at Giant Stadium, Tom as well. And I was at Red Bull Arena opening game. I was at New York Red Bulls 2 opening game. Like, I've been around. I walked in that stadium, and it was like, oh, wow. Like, you felt that whole upper deck of New York Red Bulls fans. You felt what it meant for a fan base that has waited for a really long time. And I made a comment to Tom, I think the day before in the press room, of like, forgot how much New Jersey energy there'd be in the room. There was, because it is, and now I'm being a pure Northeast person, but like, it is an area where a lot of people in the soccer world have come from and moved out and aren't just purely working or covering or around the teams in the Northeast, but they have gone on to work for other teams. A lot of players that have come out, retired, and become sporting directors and agents and all those types of things. And you sort of felt a lot of that coalesce, I think, in LA on that weekend. And it was a good reminder of what the Red Bulls, I think, should be, and what the area should be to the sport. You see it more on the women's side because of the success of the players, but it felt like you saw it in the MLS side for that weekend. And as you said, felt like a shot in the arm for this fan base and franchise to say, like, okay, let's restart after what's been a couple down years.
Yeah, and it shocked me how many old school fans were there. They were fans of this team that had long, as you said, Dave, had long left the New Jersey area, spread out around the country, and it was like, oh my God, wow, you made it. And absolutely, like, a lot of people were just like, I could not miss this. I had to be here today. And scoring in that stadium, right? Sean Nealis' goal, cut the lead to 2-1, was such a magical release for that fan base, because, I mean, listen, any team that goes down 2-0 after 15 minutes, it's like, okay, well, I guess I'll head to the airport now. But the fact
against that team, in that building, in the form that they were in, particularly the way that the Red Bulls were built, that entire playoff run,
yes,
save for I think the Columbus series, there might have been, they at least equalized or whatever it was, but it was built on, we get the lead, and guess what? If we score first, it's over. The game's over.
That's right.
2-0 down with Gabriel Peck and Joseph Paintsell on the wings, when you have to kind of come out and be a little bit more adventurous. Not to suggest that they were just bunkering the whole time, but their strength was predicated on defending and particularly getting the first goal, set piece, or whatever it was.
Yes.
It was like, me and Goss are sitting in the press box, like 2-0. There's going to be a whole lot of space for Paintsell, Peck, and the rest of them. So we were fearing closer to 4-0, 5-0 than it becoming a game. So full credit to the Red Bulls on that end.
Yeah, and the coaching and the players, and again, feel for Noah Ayla. He was not 100% when he was thrust in literally seconds before the game was about to start. And if you're LA, you go right for the weak point, and it's a 20-year-old playing in his first professional final, and it happened, and that's it. But they fought, and again, they were within a shout of making it of evening the game, and I think that's what you want, considering the team finished 7th in the East.
Let me throw out here, and then we'll move into the stuff that's going on this offseason.
Yeah.
I had the chance to interview Noah twice right in the playoff run and at MLS Cup. One of the most fascinating 20-year-olds I've ever met, just great head on his shoulders, super curious. When I interviewed him at MLS Cup, he's like, so is this one of the oldest buildings in MLS? And we had a 10-minute conversation about the stadium. Obviously, he wanted to talk about Zlatan, all these things. So I did really feel for him, and I think he is going to be a special player, both for this team and in the future.
Yeah.
It was a tough situation. And I would like to throw out, Massapequa is still a trash town as a Port Washington native. So shout out to Sean Nealis and Dylan Nealis, who had an incredible year and will be a big part of this group as well. But it always has to be said. Let's get into our transfer update, Tom. Mark talked about Emil Forsberg. He arguably the biggest signing in the team's history. That was a year ago. Now 1 year on, they're not going to find someone who can fill in when he is out. What do you make of what's happened so far, and sort of run us through the big moves?
Yeah, just a quick one. It is not arguable Emil Forsberg is not the biggest signing in the club's history. It's Thierry Henry, obviously. Or, if you want to go Frank Roast or Rafael Marquez. Maybe they hold a candle. I'm just kidding. Thierry Henry. Anyway, couldn't let that one slide. This offseason was a surprisingly busy one, I think, for the Red Bulls. And Mark, you can correct me if I'm wrong after I go through the whole spiel. They've brought in Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting as a DP center forward. 31-year-old German center back Alexander Hack. He was with Mainz with Sandro Schwartz for a long time, but he came from the Middle East. A really highly rated homegrown and Adri Mehmeti. I haven't said the homegrowns for all of these teams, but I'm making an exception for Adri, even though he won't probably play a huge role because he's 15 years old next year. This is the biggest
Soccerwise is Mehmeti Hive.
Exactly. He's the biggest talent to come out of the club, I think, since at least in the midfield, since Tyler Adams. Then you have Victor Bogash as a U22 center forward. Raheem Edwards comes in as a left back. So does Marcelo Morales, a Chilean international, 21 years old with 2 caps. And then going out, Andres Reyes, his last act as a Red Bull player was not playing in MLS Cup. John Tolkien got a long-deserved move to Germany. Dante Van Zier is back in Belgium. Elias Manuel is traded, and the coffee shops are weeping. Corey Burke left. That's not surprising. And the legend that is Ryan Mera retired.
So, Mark, take us through sort of your experience this offseason of coming out of MLS Cup. What did you think this club would do, and how does it match up with what it's looked like?
Yeah, well, I think we saw in the run to MLS Cup, I think, a true understanding from Red Bull Global, as well as Jochen Schneider, what this team can be. And in the season-ending presser, Schneider, who's the Red Bulls head of sport, was very clear about an understanding that this team can't be Emil Forsberg and a bunch of kids. They have to bring in experienced players, and that was such a sea change from everything that we've known in this interregnum since the Red Bulls walked off the field losing to Atlanta in 2018.
Yeah.
At the time, right, they'd set the record for the most points in a single season in MLS history. Since then, that's been bested a number of times. But once that era, the Dak, Sasha, Felipe era ended, BWP era ended, now and those guys, of course, all graduated to season pass. But
Yeah, I
now,
was going to say Felipe's the next one.
yeah, how to annoy City fans every single weekend. But the idea that in between from 2019 to 2023-ish, it was just about kids. We're just a football factory. Bringing in a player like Choupo-Moting and Hack, I think really is a shot in the arm, right? These guys, I spoke to Alexander Hack during the week at press. He said, look, Forsberg and Choupo-Moting and I are all Bundesliga vets. We all speak German. We're all super close already, and we really can be the leaders that this team needs to get to the next level. And so I think New York was doing it on both ends, right? Bringing in experienced leadership. And listen, whether Choupo-Moting's 35-year-old legs can go, I don't know. I think that's a good question for one of the big questions for 2025, but also bringing in Bogash, as we said, and bringing in Morales, who I think is due to arrive or has arrived or imminently arriving, promoting Audrey Mehmeti, who I will agree, Tom, this kid is special. And when I asked Sandro Schwartz about him this week, his eyes just got all big, and he said, "Oh, wow, no, this kid is phenomenal, and he's 15." And he said, "I know what I was doing when I was 15, and it wasn't what this kid was doing." So, I think it's an evolved understanding of what this team could and should be. You can do both. You can build from within. You can promote youth, and you can bring in experienced heads that understand what it takes to get to that next level. Now, if they go out in 2 games to Columbus, do they make these changes? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But I think all of the positive vibe around the team's playoff run has kind of led to an evolution in thinking. And the last thing I'll say is all these moves, vast majority of the moves, were done immediately after the end of the season. Red Bull fans are accustomed to signings being made now, where players miss all of training camp with visa issues, and then it takes them 10 games to even integrate into the team. In the case of Choupo-Moting and Hack, at the very least, they were there the day that training camp opened, and Red Bulls will be better for it.
Yeah, and to your point, like, I think what we saw with Emil Forsberg is you put a top quality player on the pitch, that raises everybody. That makes your young players better. That makes them develop better. So it's not just like, it should be enough to say this is going to help us win games, and that's enough. It's money well spent. We're going to be better. But even if you needed that other layer of, well, actually, this is going to increase the investments in your young players, whether they're from the academy and all of the money you're putting into the academy, or if you're signing young players from abroad. Like, I think that you do these players a disservice if you're running it as a U23 team. And I am very glad that they weren't like, oh, we have Emil Forsberg. Good, we did
done.
it. That's it. And then guess what? If he misses 17 games, we'll be really average or bad without him. And again, like, we can have our opinions or critiques or thoughts on, like, the Choupo-Moting signing. You know, should this be a DP? Whatever it is, right? We've been railing for so long about that, about just signing young players or unproven players or whatever it is, that, like, I can't fault them for this, whether it works out perfectly or not. And I think that between him and Forsberg, you hope that both can start 25 games. I don't know if that's likely or not, but as long as they're available and fit for the biggest games and you have enough of these young players around to rotate in and out, like, I'm very glad that they didn't say, oh, look, no, but we did it with Forsberg and that's it. We don't need to do it anymore.
Yeah, you'd have to think. I mean, the quality that Forsberg brought, I think, helped Daniel Edelman have a good year. It helped Peter Stroud have a good year. I think John Tolkien gets sold anyway, but maybe it's at a bigger number than what it would have been because of the success they had. And maybe the Andres Reyes trade was at a bigger number than it should have been. And so that's what you talk about, where there's like 4 different buckets you're trying to hit: team success, youth development, selling, and then making the team sustainable. And it feels like they got the proof that bringing that veteran player in. Alex Hack, it feels like clear upgrade at center back of his ability to probably pass the ball and control things at that position. And then Choupo-Moting is going to be one of the big difference makers. We've got a line at the end of this that we're going to have to pick our over-under, that Andrew Wiebe set, that is, of course, Choupo-Moting related. So let's dig into things. Let's start with our Doyleism from Mr. Matt Doyle, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, still yet another kind of disappointing offseason from the Red Bulls so far, especially coming off of that MLS Cup appearance in December. There's a real opening here for this team, I think, to compete for a cup of some sort, which would be the first in club history, whether it's MLS Cup or Leagues Cup or whatever you want to throw your name on. Like this team has a lot of pieces and can do it. Now, they did go out and add a couple of Bundesliga veterans in Alexander Hack and Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting, who is on a DP deal, which is a little weird because he hasn't played 2,000 minutes in a season since about 2016. But still, he should be better than Corey Burke was. So they do have a little bit more talent, and then they have opened up another DP slot by sending Dante Van Zier back to Belgium. The hope is that it's a Timo Werner or a Patson Daka, that type of player. Like the Red Bull Global has the money to do that. Do they have the ambition? That's what we've been asking about this club for 10 years. Even the players on the team have been asking about this club for 10 years. Do they have the will to go out and add that extra piece? We know that the Red Bulls are going to be good at everything else. We know they're going to make the playoffs. They're probably going to be around 50 points. They'll develop a couple young players. Do they have that one more special player who can get them over the top in the biggest games? If they don't have the will to add that guy, I don't think they're going to win anything.
Tom, let's start with you. Do you think they add that piece?
I think that they'll be in the market for a big addition. Again, whether that is a DP or if it's a U22 initiative, I think it remains to be seen. Again, the Timo Werner interest, that's been real for a year. There was nothing new there. Like, I like that. If that's the kind of player that comes in, we talk about Choupo-Moting and Forsberg about, hey, how many minutes are they going to play? You get a Timo Werner, and one, like, the finishing ability and everything else, like, it's overblown. Like, yeah, maybe he's not good enough for the German national team, or maybe not good enough to make Tottenham, in the top 6 or whatever, right? Like, how many goals did he score at Leipzig for however many years, right?
Yeah.
I think that he would be fine in MLS. I also think that he's a pretty good bet to play 28 games, to start 28 games, I should say. So whether it is Timo Werner, whether it is somebody that you have to spend 10 or 10 million on, obviously that'd be the preference, but I think most importantly, it's a player in that profile. And again, even if it's U22 initiative, it should be a 21-year-old player with several years in a top flight league, or like that, that's going to come.
Yeah,
make
not an
impact.
18-year-old to play in 2 years.
And most importantly, be able to carry the load of 25 to 30 starts this year.
Mark, do you feel similar to Doyle that this team has stayed steady or taken a step back, or do you think this offseason so far is a step forward?
I don't think how you can see the signing of Choupo-Moting and Hack as a step backward. I'm sorry,
exactly.
I don't. They're upgrades. I mean, the last two, I don't think Van Zier had one goal. Red Bull forwards scored one goal in their 5-game playoff run, right? Right. Carvalho got a couple, and he's coming back from injury. We haven't talked about him and how the importance. Frankly, he wasn't fit to go in an MLS Cup, and that hurt New York as well. Mm-hmm. He scored probably 2 of the biggest playoff gols the team has ever seen, right? And so we haven't touched on him, but he is working his way back to fitness. Yes, he's only here till the middle of the season for now, but he's another experienced cog. I digress. I mean, sure, everyone wants a Cucho, right? Like everyone wants. A young, as you said, young 20s experienced goal scorer. Every team in the world wants that. It's too soon to know what Bogac is, the biggest signing in Polish second division history. Is he going to be the second coming of Bjornsson, or is he actually a player that can contribute? Bringing in more experienced depth to fill Tolkien's role. We touched briefly on Raheem Edwards. Could be a big boost to the Red Bulls defense. So I take issue with the idea that here's another disappointing offseason. This is a very different transfer window for New York that we haven't seen in half a decade, right? Bringing in more experienced players early, as I said earlier, they're with the team now. They're already integrated with the squad. Would I love to see a Timo Werner come to Red Bulls? Sure, absolutely. But already they've made some upgrades, and with another year for players like Cam Harper, and another year for players like Peter Stroud, and another year for players like Wiki Carmona, like who has been in New York for 5 years and he's 22 years old. Yeah. Like I'm not disappointed. I and maybe it's just recency bias of they've done almost nothing for the last 5 years, and so this, by comparison, is so much better. I think this is a good offseason for New York, and the Red Bulls will be taking every competition they play in incredibly seriously. Schwartz the other day was very clear about saying, we're going for 4 trophies in the Shield. Like, we, and Hack, no, it was Carlos Coronel who said he wasn't sure whether or not the Red Bulls were playing an Open Cup. And we're like, no, they're playing an Open Cup. He's like, the first team? Yes, you get to play an Open Cup this year. Great, thanks. He's like, that's the quickest way to CONCACAF. It's a 5-game tournament. And so I think they understand, obviously, in season 30 and no shiny, traditional knockout tournament wins, they've got a number of different ways to do it.
Yeah, so Leagues Cup and U.S. Open Cup for Red Bulls this year. Every club can play in at max 2 North American Championships cups, and so not qualifying for CONCACAF Champions Cup means you get put in Leagues Cup as a playoff team, and then U.S. Open Cup, which will be really fun. And I think it sucks that players don't know that they're in it because it's so complicated.
He's very focused on preparing for the season.
Yeah. Hopefully we're moving away from that, and every team will play in it, and I think it will be a fun one for Red Bulls. Now, I will say this in terms of the offseason. When Choupo-Moting first got signed, I'm not saying you want to keep Dante Van Zier, but it was a plus to everything from last year.
Yeah.
If it's instead of, then you start to get into the question of, I think he probably gives you more production, but how much? And so it becomes a situation in which, can you replace Van Zier and have added Choupo-Moting to take you to the next level? And I think Hack is an upgrade in the back line. And so I think that one is a clear like for like upgrade in what he can give you. You mentioned the midfield. I don't have any questions about that part of the field. I think Stroud struggled in MLS Cup because it's a tough thing to do. Thought he had a really good year, and so you're looking at one of the deeper central midfields in Major League Soccer, and one that clearly fits very cleanly with what Sandro Schwartz wants to do. And so for the most part, the strength of this team is back, right? It's the spine, it's the defensive ability. Coronel in the playoffs was the Coronel that he was when he first came.
Yes.
My expectation would be that he levels out somewhere closer to there than where he dropped all the way down to. And now you're looking at a team that, even if Forsberg's in and out and we're talking about 24 starts or something, that you're probably still talking about a team fighting for a home playoff game in the Eastern Conference, which is the step you want to take just to make a potential second run to MLS Cup even easier. And so I agree with you. I think there's a lot of good work that's been done, but yet we are still in February wondering what the next move will be. And I think Mark wasn't going to paradise on vacation. Maybe we'd have to record this one late because we don't know what that final piece will be. And so the Red Bulls in one way have done their business early, and another way are still one of those clubs which right against the back of the season starting, you're not 100% sure who they are.
Well, what I would say is that I think this is a good spot to be in because I don't see an obvious hole. And you could say a third DP that should be a hole, or however else you want to phrase it, of go just be all in before the season starts. But I think this team has depth everywhere. I think they have options. Mark, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on if Sandro Schwartz will primarily play out of the 3-4-2-1, or if it will be the 4-2-2-2 or some variation there within, because they have flexibility to go either way. And I think if you make a signing, you kind of commit to that and don't make a signing just for the sake of it, because I think this team is well covered, and for we don't have to worry about them slipping away from the playoff race, even though the Eastern Conference is completely stacked this year.
Yeah. Before you go, Mark, just real quick, I want everyone to know, as of now, Lewis Morgan has re-signed on that TAM deal. Another reason why, as you said, you don't worry about taking the step back, but I don't know when we're running this, so I just wanted to make sure everyone knew we knew that. Mark, go.
Yeah, Schwartz was asked about what he was going to play. The team switched to a 3-4-2-1, or even a 3. He called it a 3-4-3. It's a 3-4-1-2, I guess. But nevertheless, he's very comfortable playing that. The team has gone out. Tommy, I don't know if this is come across your transom, if you've shared this. If not, my apologies. The notion that Tim Parker's returning to New York, and so signing more center backs would certainly lead me to believe that he's going to be comfortable playing with 3 in the back. Then you've got Hack and you've you've got Nealis and you've got Ayla and you've got Tim Parker, and Dylan Nealis can do the job in a pinch. Although we haven't really talked about him. He had a phenomenal season last year, really leveled up down the stretch. So important for New York. So yeah, I don't think we're going to see a lot of the 4-2-2. I think until he is proven wrong, I think the 3-4-3 is definitely where New York is going to be, and I think New York is definitely going to feel good about the pieces that they have there.
Let's go to Weeby's line here, which is Choupo-Moting, 17.5 starts in Major League Soccer, over or under. So the question being both, will he be healthy and will he be the locked-in starter with all these rumors that we're talking about? Tom, you want to go first here? A good New Jersey line for you?
I think that this would have been more difficult if it was a couple more games. Like, I do think that we're looking at like the 18 to 22 range, and again, maybe that's being too letting them off easy. I would go over 17.5 because again, that is above half of the games. And if you signed a player that you're worried about him starting that many games, they shouldn't have signed him to a DP deal. So I'm just going to kind of trust that, barring something bad happening, which could obviously happen given his injury history, but I think it had more to do with he was at Bayern Munich as, mid-30s players who maybe wasn't quite that level. I think that had more to do with him not playing all of those games, but I could be wrong if he's made a class. But for me, I'm going over.
Mark?
Yeah, is this just league games?
Yes.
Regular season, yeah.
So that's where, if you're taking Open Cup seriously and he's 35 years old and he's getting starts midweek,
right,
that is part of the question mark.
Yeah.
If he's starting the first couple rounds, I think that's
yeah.
Well, and New York's starting on the road as well in the Open Cup, so we don't know where that's going to be. I'm not assuming that this is an Henri turf issue with him. Maybe it will be, maybe it won't. Right? I mean, just to be different, unfortunately, I guess I'll say under. Maybe it's 16, 17. I mean, I don't know if he's going to be able to go 3 times in 8 days, as New York will probably do, as every team will do, probably 4 or 5 times during the regular season. So I think he will be saved, and maybe, we're talking starts, right? We're not talking 70th minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll come in slightly under that.
I could see a world in which he's still a good signing, and yet he's not starting because he is an impact sub, and Lewis Morgan's going to start. And so then you're in a situation where if Serge Gomez healthy and Julian Hall are healthy and they're playing well, that Choupo-Moting can give you the performance he can give you for the final 30 minutes. The line's probably a little low. It probably should have been 19.5 or 20.5. That probably would have pressed us a little bit more. So I'm still going to go over, but I do understand where the question marks can come. Plus, we still haven't talked about if they do sign a Timo Werner.
That's right.
Where's Lewis Morgan starting? And then, therefore, where's Choupo-Moting starting? There is a little trickle down there that could happen, which, by the way, great problem to have. For a fan base that has had stress about getting the 11th starter on the field, having 12 or 13, probably not a bad place to be in. Unfortunately, the Galaxy right now felt like they have taken a step back, because I know Red Bulls are only allowed to play MLS Cups in Carson. And so with it now being a host site, you need the Galaxy to be a top 4 team in the Western Conference. So we'll keep an eye on that one. And our LA Galaxy preview we're actually working on right now. So Red Bulls fans can all tune into that one to make sure that everything settles in well. Once again, for anyone joining us here for the first time, come join us here at Soccerwise. Search Soccerwise HQ for all your socials. And if you do not listen to Seeing Red, you should go do that, because it is a great show. And Mark, we appreciate spending some time with you.
Gentlemen, it's always a pleasure to talk.